Planet Water Podcast.
Hello everybody.
Hey guys.
Welcome to Planet Water, the H2Know podcast, episode 7 already.
It's incredible.
Chance? Jesus. We're getting busier and busier, and I have to say, this episode I'm very excited anyhow, because we have a very quite interesting episode, because this is the episode about what lies upstream. It's an incredible movie, and I can highly recommend this to everybody. You should see it, and we want to watch a trailer, or we'll see the trailer as well. And it was the first time, Chance, that we actually went out with the Planet Water podcast equipment to a different location.
And did it live in front of an audience.
Yes, that was really pretty interesting. It will be in part 2, obviously. We will show this here. It was at the Arena Cinelounge on Sunset.
Yep, and the documentary's still screening there, so you guys can check it out.
Yeah. So when you want to see the document on the big screen, what lies upstream, I think you should check it out right now at the Arena Cinelounge on Sunset. And then it is available already. I checked it today on iTunes.
Cool.
You can download it for $12.99, I believe. Then you can own it for your library. You can buy the Blu-ray DVDs as well on the homepage, whatliesupstream.com. And you can even rent it on iTunes as well, I think for $4.99.
Oh, awesome.
So that's
totally
pretty
worth
awesome.
it. Totally worth it.
That's pretty awesome. One more very exciting thing is today, guys, and you see I have here my iMac, and then I have here right in front of me my iPad Pro, because we are live today for the first time on Facebook Live. And I'm very excited to do this. Obviously, the sound quality is not perfect on Facebook yet. We're missing a cable, and it's not that easy to buy this cable. We tried to buy this cable, and I don't know in how many stores today. But it's a very unique cable that you can plug a mic into your iPad. It's very unique. And I went to very specialty stores today, and they don't have that.
You can only get it online.
It looks like I can only get it online, so we will have it. And next time, when we're doing our live podcast, we will have it with a way better sound quality. So people, because I see already we have over 10 people watching us already on Facebook Live right now.
Guys.
So please hang with us. The next episode, when we're doing it, I think on Monday, will be in way better sound quality, hopefully. Great. So we want to start, obviously, because we received some emails again from people. And we want to showcase some emails. And first we received from who? From Chance?
This is my little brother, actually. He's working at John George at the Trump International Hotel in New York.
Oh.
It's a great restaurant. And obviously they have some Trump water there.
They have Trump natural spring water.
Yeah, natural
there.
spring water.
Yeah. And there's a second picture, I think. Here. Trump in the cage.
Look at that.
Here we go. Like a lot of waters from the Trump water in a cage. Obviously, they want to secure it that nobody's drinking it. That's very interesting.
Yeah. I wonder if that's the only water in the restaurant that they have.
I don't know. We
Yeah,
should check with your brother, huh? What he's saying. And he sent us a video, and this is actually a very hilarious video. Give me one sec, because there is, I think, a sound still on it, and obviously we don't need the sound. Let me check where the sound is coming from. Hang with us for a second. It has to be coming from iTunes. Here we go.
There we go.
That was the little problem. Here we go. Now we're building back up, and we want to give the stage to the brother of Chance.
The only way to drink Trump water. I'm just kidding. It's delicious.
Oh, he's so cute.
So this was great. So people who don't see us on YouTube, so he just wanted to almost pour the Trump water into the what do you call this?
The toilet.
Yeah.
He couldn't help it because it's natural spring water. You don't want to waste that.
Correct. But it's natural spring water, guys, and obviously we don't want to badmouth natural spring water. So we're on it. But the interesting part about Trump water is because I did an episode about Trump water, and it was a purified water.
Oh, really?
Then I found out it looks exactly the same, and they have two versions of the water. The East Coast getting natural spring water, and the West Coast, where we're sitting, getting just the purified water crap.
Wow.
So it's very interesting. So you always look at the labels, guys, what we're always saying, and check out what the labels are saying. And there's two versions of the Trump water out of there. So on the East Coast, it's natural occurring spring water, what they're filling up in their bottles. And here on the West Coast, and on Vegas as well, because I was in Vegas at the Trump Towers to just check out the waters. I was not staying there. I just wanted to see. And it says purified water.
Wow. I wonder if it's like a cost thing, like shipping costs or something.
I have no
He's
clue.
Just squeezing pennies,
It's very interesting. But hey, they have two different versions of that. Then another picture showed up, and this was kind of funny. Let's see right here. Nope, that's the wrong one. I'm not finding my emails now. Martin is really bad today. Here we go. Perfect. Somebody sent me this over as a video over Instagram, and this was really hilarious. It's Pacemoan is his username, and there's a guy in the background, and they took a video, but I cannot pull the video from Instagram. I just did a screenshot, and there's a guy who pretty much looks like me. And this was it was like,
totally
who
does.
the hell? But first of all, there are different differences, obviously, because when you see in the picture he's tattooed, you see here I'm not tattooed at all. Then you see in the picture he holding a coffee cup. I don't drink coffee, guys.
Dead giveaway.
The official water sommelier does not drink coffee. I'm not like the taste of coffee. So it's not about me that I hate coffee or something.
Yeah.
I'm just not into coffee.
It's definitely an acquired taste.
Correct. I don't like the taste. And then, I don't know. My wife looks hotter, I think. Here we go. Perfect. Then my wife sent me some pictures over from Germany. And I think that's kind of cool. Because she's in Germany right now, and she wanted to showcase some regular waters in a grocery store in Germany. And she found 25 different mineral waters just in that store.
In one grocery store.
In one grocery store. And this
that's
was not a
incredible.
fancy grocery store. We're talking about a super simple, normal grocery store in Germany. And the prices were like between 49 cents and like I think $1.50 per bottle.
Wow, that's incredible.
And when you see this picture already here, Extaler Mineral Quell, this is a sparkling water from Germany, medium sparkling water it says. These coming in recycled bins. So you're buying the whole case, 12 packs.
Yeah.
And then when you're drinking out or when you finish all this water, you're bringing back the whole case with the bottles. They're shipping it back to the factory and they're reusing the bottles.
Makes complete sense. That's a great system.
So that's pretty cool. So that's a very interesting recycling system. Even here, pictures of plastic bottles, what we're using as well. Sometimes we have hard plastic bottles. They're reusable. Then they're shipping it back to the companies as well, and they're reusing it. And these plastic bottles, that means that you're just buying them, but you still bring them back to the grocery store because all these bottles are recycled, and it's not just a 5-cent fee, what you have here in California. It's 25 cents in Germany.
Really?
And when you think about 25 cents per bottle,
Per bottle.
You're thinking twice.
Yeah.
If you want to trust that.
Yeah.
That's a quarter.
Exactly.
So by 12 bottles,
You're like, I'm bringing this back.
it's already $4.
Yeah.
Huh? So
Yeah.
they're all actually $3. Sorry, my math is off today. But still, that is a lot of money for people.
Yeah, that's a good system.
Therefore, you bring them back. And the interesting part is every single grocery store in Germany who sells water needs to take the waters back. Or the bottles back. So it's not even that you're going to, let's say, Ralph's here.
Yeah.
You can even go to Ralph's here, buy these waters, and then you can go to pavilions
Really?
and drop them back off. That's by German law required.
Wow.
Everybody who sells water needs to recycle their bottles. And you're getting the money back. And they have huge machines in Germany. It's very, very convenient. They have huge machines. You just put the bottles in there or the whole case, and the machine will calculate right away what kind of bottle that is. And then you're getting like a small coupon with the money, and then you can go to the cash register. You can get the cash for it, or you can buy stuff again.
It's
very cool. Every single store in Germany has that.
Wow.
It's required by law. So I like this. So this whole recycling system is crazy in Germany, and I have to say I really appreciate what they're doing.
Were there any purified waters there?
No, she did not even found
Wow.
one brand of purified water.
Wow,
I think that's
crazy.
very, very interesting too. Then, we had a very nice episode, I think, in episode 6, huh? What do you think about the episode about raw water?
Yeah, that was mind-blowing. I mean, there was, like, I only had a very superficial idea of what the raw water movement was. But then when we looked a little deeper, we realized how more nuanced it really is, you know, and how, like, widespread how in Europe, like, the spring water environment there is basically raw water, you
Correct.
know, which is crazy. It's not something I ever
I think this was very unique for us because this raw water movement, and there are two big sides to the raw water movement, obviously. The first movement is saying, no, you should go to your spring and you should drink your spring right there.
Yeah, exactly.
And obviously this is not safe, guys, so we don't know what's actually in that water, so I would never do that.
Yeah.
But the other hand, like Tomale Springs, the two gentlemen we had on the show last time, they have even a trademark on the raw water name. So they're actually the only ones who are actually allowed to use the name raw water. And this is a highly sophisticated water brand who gets tested all the time and it's completely safe to drink. And then we looked at the German law and we realized, oh my God, actually all these mineral waters in Germany are nothing else than raw waters.
Yeah, exactly.
By law.
That's
That's
crazy.
really, really funny, I think. So we see today our programs doesn't work really, because now the trailer what I wanted to show you from what Lies Upstream suddenly doesn't work anymore, but we will get another trailer in here today. That should be no problem whatsoever. And here's already the trailer. Let's see.
And it's been getting great reviews on Rotten Tomatoes as 100%. On IMDb, it's an 8.4. It's really great. The reception's been awesome.
It's amazing, and you will see it in the second half of our podcast today, how amazing this documentary is. And it's very scary, I have to say, and it's really mind-blowing what it's all about. But let's listen in a little bit what Lies Upstream is actually all about. Here we go. Let's do this, and camera is rolling.
That's the main thing. They want it all to go away.
I think there should be a thorough investigation of what happened and why this incident happened.
So if this was a whodunit mystery...
There's no whodunit.
We're not getting a lot of support from a lot of people, resistance from people who don't want to know what's going on.
You assume that everybody are telling the truth, but every once in a while the IRS will audit you.
If I cheat on my taxes, 300,000 people don't get poisoned.
We are the first human beings this chemical has ever been experimented on.
If you're looking to find something, you need to know what you're looking for. And that's a huge undertaking.
Is the water safe?
Yes.
I'm not here to convince you the water's safe. I'm here to figure out if it is. This sounds like a real FIMBY issue.
What's FIMBY?
It's in my backyard.
So I went about to document these illnesses and deaths and found out that they were linked to an EPA policy.
They poisoned thousands of children, covered it up.
So there was a lot of kind of manipulations.
Bad guys aren't the traditional bad guys, you know. And traditional good guys aren't the good guys.
The advice I give to responders nowadays is don't trust anybody.
Here's my briefing from the night before, and it's information from both those departments dismissing people.
We are going to end the EPA intrusion into your lives.
The police escorted me to my truck because they were concerned for my safety.
Control these up on the way.
All right, let's get out of here.
Make it in your interest to engage in unethical behavior to cover up problems. And if you can get away with it, you will do that.
The people who test this say it's acceptable to drink.
That's right? What they say.
It's very mind-blowing, I think. And you just watched the trailer, and I highly recommend for people to watch the whole documentary because this is really nuts.
Yeah,
what's happening.
At the very least, it'll make you question the quality of your tap water. And for me, I'm just like, when I watch this, like, I'm never drinking tap water again. Like, it's too scary because there's so many things that go wrong. I mean, there's how thorough the testing measures are that needs to be fixed. Then you need to talk about how these companies are actually self-regulating themselves. Like, people aren't holding the companies accountable to release information about, release third-party vetted information about how safe the chemicals they're using are and how much they're actually interacting with the environment. And there's all the government lobbyists. It's crazy. And then there's literally like scientists who are falsifying studies saying how safe certain chemicals are. And it's just like on every single level of how the safety of our tap water should be regulated is failing in some respect.
Correct.
And it's crazy. Like, it's something everybody should watch.
Yes, I think so too. And because everybody drinks water, and it's so important for a country to supply safe drinking water, it is mind-blowing for me when you see what happened here in the United States.
Absolutely.
And we're not talking about a country who have struggles with even clean sourced water. We're talking about a highly industrial and very rich country.
Yeah.
And that is like very, very scary for me. And again, guys, you will see it in the second part. We will have an interview with Cullen, the producer and director of the movie. And it's mind-blowing. It will be around an hour interview, and we will cut it right next after it. Obviously, our Facebook friends who's watching us right now on Facebook Live, you can see the full Planet Water podcast up in around 36 hours on YouTube. And then as a sound file, it will be up in the next 24 hours. So it's very, very scary to see this. And again, guys, that's the whole point about Planet Water, the H2Know podcast. We want to showcase not just obviously amazing drinking waters, and we want to match them to interesting things. That's the reason we did raw water last week, because we wanted to talk about the controversy as well, what people are saying about it. And I think what Lies Upstream was very, very important for us, that we wanted to showcase this year on Planet Water, the H2Know podcast too. And it's for me amazing that still people don't have access to clean drinking water. And this is very, very, very sad for me. And we need to fight together to get better regulations, obviously, and to make sure that every single person, not just in America, even on this planet, has access to clean and safe drinking water.
Absolutely.
This is, for me, clearly a human right. Clearly a human right. And I cannot still believe people who saying, whatever, it's like, water, I don't care. It's the most important thing in our lives. And that's very, very important. Again, guys, so this is the first part of the podcast. Thanks again for the people who are watching us on Facebook. We will stop the Facebook live feed right now here. But again, you can always now watch the whole episodes on Facebook Live. This will be a lot of fun. Please respond to Facebook Live as well, because we want to listen to you guys on the show, and we want to hear what you guys are saying. And then you can still more and more interact with us, because we can read then the comments right away live here on the podcast. And when you have questions, you can pull it over here right away in the podcast, and I can see what's going on. So this will be a lot of fun, I think, for everybody, that we can answer your questions live on the podcast. You will be then on the podcast as well. And I think this is a great thing to start for 2018, that we have now this live feature as well on Facebook Live. And then you will see the link obviously up in the next 24 or 36 hours when everything is live and good to go. Great. Thank you so much for listening in to part 1. And let's start right away here with part 2. Thank you so much for being here. And we are already taping, because we already started all the cameras. And thanks for the public, obviously, to be here as well. I'm so sorry that we cannot pull this on auto speaker system, but then we will have some problems with the mics. So therefore, we will try to talk a little louder for you.
You can all hear us okay, though, right?
Yes. I think it should be fine.
Excellent.
Great.
Yeah, can we just, so the people, I guess, know there are some humans.
They're like actually people here. And for us, it's something new as well, because we are taping the 7th episode of the podcast, and it's the first time that we have live audience. So that's something very special and unique. And thanks again for being here today, Cullen. And this is, I think, a very, very great thing. And we met in 2014 in West Virginia when I was judging waters.
We did, yeah. It was actually very surreal for me to drive up to, is it Berkeley Springs?
Berkeley Springs.
Berkeley Springs,
yeah.
and experience this water competition. where people bring high quality water from around the state, and West Virginia American Water traditionally enters this competition.
Yes.
This is of course the water company that was responsible for not keeping the water safe and free of MCHM for the 300,000 residents that they were serving, and so they didn't enter that year. No prizes were given to them. Of course, I brought the sample from Charleston, and you so kindly sniffed it.
Oh yeah, I remember this very well. I remember this. You surprised me obviously with that smell, but I was blown away how bad the smell was. It was very, very scary.
Well, it did a good job, I think, of capturing something that's hard to convey on film, which is something that's invisible, right?
Yeah.
Like a smell.
Yeah.
And of course, that's the problem we face now with all of the water that we're drinking, is that the problems associated with it are invisible and they don't smell.
Yes.
So we don't actually have the benefit of being able to uncork something and say, my gosh, there's licorice in there. I mean, imagine, in the film we show that there are hundreds, if not thousands, of chemicals that make it into, tap water, drinking water, and it's all unregulated, and they don't have the same kind of smell. Imagine if they did, right? Imagine
Correct.
the bouquet that
Yes.
you would experience if each one smelled like licorice or peppermint or bananas. I don't know.
Why did you started to investigate water? What was the first, what made you the decision to say, I have to do something?
It came down to the smell. I had family in West Virginia.
Okay.
And I hadn't been back there in decades, though. And my mom sent me a text. You don't see that in the film, but my mom had sent me a text saying, did you see what's going on in West Virginia? Looked it up, and there wasn't a lot of information, but one thing that was very striking was that it seems that the way the chemical had been detected, as you see in the film, was because of the smell. And that made me wonder, well, gosh, what else is getting into into our water that we can't smell? Is it happening in places outside of West Virginia? And why is that happening, right? So the question of, what's in there and who's not doing their jobs? What are all of the pieces that we can put together to kind of convey how this is happening?
Was it planned for you, because you started in 2014, obviously, with West Virginia? Did it was planned that you're waiting until almost 2017 to release the movie, and that this is like a bigger problem that you realize suddenly? It will be like over years you have to follow that whole movement and industry and what's actually happening, and to discover this bigger problem actually.
Well, I could not have predicted Flint. And in fact, I had a version of the film that I thought was fairly close to done when the Flint crisis happened, and then we decided, hey, let's regroup. Let's go there and let's see what we find.
Yeah.
Let's see if there's a connection between what was going on in West Virginia and what's going on in Flint. When I started the film, I thought we were going to be in West Virginia for 3 weeks, going to get to the bottom of this sort of whodunit, look for the smoking gun, try to find the one responsible entity. And as you see in the film, of course, the reason this is happening is just so complicated. You can't point a finger at any one person. Is convenient and comforting in the way as that would be, because then you can go, all right, let's get rid of that one person. Let's get rid of Martha Stewart on Wall Street. Then Wall Street's solved. It's the same thing with the drinking water situation. You can't get rid of one person at the EPA. You can't get rid of one person in West Virginia. The problem is so much more far-reaching than that.
Yeah.
And how did it feel as it became more and more apparent that it was a systemic issue? As you were making it, it just became more complicated. How did that affect your approach to covering the story, and I guess your own perception towards how you could actually tackle it?
Well, as the story kind of broadened in scope, in some ways it was helpful, because I can sit in a room and I can say, look, this isn't just West Virginia water. It's something that's happening like we see in the film. The testing was from Santa Barbara.
Yeah.
That water. But it didn't matter. We've done lots of testing since then, and both of soil samples and water samples, and it's the same story over and over again. Lots and lots of peaks, not enough information, virtually no information. So I think that West Virginia in the film, and because we're able to tie it to Flint, and because of conversations I've had with both regulators and politicians at the federal level, and people who work in policy in D.C., what you see in West Virginia is just a microcosm of what's happening across the country. You know, when you get inside the room with lobbyists who are literally writing health policy for the state, rewriting some of the most meaningful protective legislation we've seen in West Virginia in decades, that's not just a West Virginia thing. Usually we just don't get cameras. We're not privy to this experience of seeing lobbyists literally write the wordings and of these bills and also threaten politicians with the potential of dark money being used against them or whatever you see in that room, like whatever they're saying.
This isn't going to work for us. Yeah, exactly.
This isn't going to work for us. Change it, or you know what's coming.
Yeah. Did you had some backlash as well after you published this, I think, mind-blowing documentary? And I have to say, I was never a big fan of the tap water quality in America. I arrived in 1999 the first time to Los Angeles, and I smelled the water, and I never had this chlorine smell was so offsetting for me, because in Germany, our tap water, we don't use chlorine. We don't need to use it. Our tap water qualities are very, very good. But still, I told you this 4 years ago when we met at the ArcLight Theater, that they did a testing on the soda fountains in Germany. And they found out that at the Coke soda fountain, there was something else, and they didn't know what it is. And they thought, like, maybe there's something wrong with the machine, or maybe with the regulations of the soda, what's coming into. Then they realized, oh, it might be the tap water what they're using, that they're finding antibiotics, medications, all this kind of stuff as well in German tap water these days, because everybody flushes down. Now there are big commercials on TVs in Germany all the time to say, like, please do not flush down your drugs when you don't use them. Please give them back to your pharmacy and they will destroy them for you. So it's very interesting.
It does come out, our body doesn't
it's still correct,
everything
correct.
either, so.
But still they're trying at least to minimize it because they don't know what to put to it. So did you receive some backlashes from lobbyists, or did you receive some bad emails or something like this to say, like, hey, this is
like
completely
trolls
wrong?
On Twitter.
Yeah, but you never know. It's like, it would interest me if actually state departments or something like that reached out to you and said, do you know what, we really don't like what you just did there.
We have not. I mean, I have not experienced that since the film has been finished. While we were making the film, certainly there were not even thinly veiled threats from lobbyists. I mean, I had a lobbyist come up to me and say, "I have a case file on you, and if you release the information that we're discussing right now, I'll release this on you."
Look at that.
So sure, there was.
So they tried to blackmail you. Pretty much.
Threat. I don't even know what was in the folder. But I'm curious. It might have been just empty.
Like the hats.
It was really interesting too, like looking at the transformation of Dr. Gupta. I mean, this is somebody who I think anybody looking at this character from the outside would say this is an altruistic persona, and then he just sort of buckles under the weight of the system, it seems, when he becomes more a part of it or more involved. Like, how was observing that transformation, I guess, and did that offer you any insights into what the core of the issue was?
Because it almost feels like you had a friendship relationship to him at one point in the beginning, and it changed slightly, obviously, too.
Sure. I mean, my takeaway from that is if Dr. Gupta, who starts out as a very strong advocate of public health, maybe the strongest Aaron Brockovich, who makes a brief appearance in the film, has ever seen out of any health official, ends up in this position where they seem hamstrung, where they maybe could make the right, maybe make the decision that's on behalf of public health, but are afraid of doing so because of the potential political fallout, or because they just want to keep their job, whatever the case may be. So much of that ties back to one issue, and that's campaign finance reform. And I wanted to actually ask you, Martin, about this, because Germany, I mean, when you're dealing with regulators there, are they beholden to political interests in the same way the politicians in the lobbyists control politicians and politicians control regulators in the United States? Are the regulators there beholden in the same way as to those political interests?
So we have definitely lobbyists as well. in Germany. Obviously, we Germans are a country of industry, and we like to build stuff. And we know what happened with Volkswagen, that this was completely crazy and nuts. And I think that's a very good example that the regulations were saying, yeah, it's all fine. And then suddenly they realized, oh my God, there's all this craziness coming from the auto companies. And they had to change suddenly the laws. And then it was our Watergate, what happened there with Volkswagen, because it was even this made in Germany, what's always like this seal of approval almost around the world was in jeopardy. And people were very, very upset about this, that the regulations obviously were not fitting anymore and they needed to revisit these kind of things. And they're doing it right now, but I think...
Was Volkswagen self-regulating?
Sure, they're self-regulating. Even the state has parts of Volkswagen, their own Volkswagen. Mm-hmm. It's a state-owned company by percentage of. And that's very, very scary. And I think this is like a whole bigger point, what we're seeing around the world, that the lobbyists have more and more power these days. And they are literally bribing people to do maybe other regulations or this regulations. What really scares me, and I have to say that you're not even we're playing here, because now we're playing with lives when it comes to tap water qualities. Huh? And when you not even know, and we saw this in the beginning of the film, it's been asked all the time to officials, is the water safe to drink? And they said, absolutely, it's safe to drink. By regulations, yeah, it's safe to drink. And this is what I think, what I love, and the takeaway for me always about this movie is that you're saying, yeah, by regulations, maybe safe to drink. That doesn't any meaning that this is actually safe.
You can set any number you want, and
correct.
Say, it's basically about risk elimination or some negotiation that happened between the chemical companies and the state regulators when they set those standards. I mean, the chemical that we reveal at the end of the film is appearing in the local water supply. There's 8 states in the countries that had varying levels where they said, we know this chemical causes cancer. We're not allowing it. But the rest of the states completely allow it. Doesn't mean it's safe.
Correct.
Just because we're not looking for the problem doesn't mean it's safe. And that's why you have folks from the CDC coming in, and when they're asked over and over again, is the water safe? They'll just say, it's
sure,
fit for use.
Yeah.
Now, I get asked this question a lot, and because you're from Europe, maybe you can give some insight here. Is there a model, like a regulatory model, that you think is sort of the shining example when it comes to water protection and water safety in Europe?
So it's interesting, because when you're a part of the European Union, it's kind of like almost the same what the United States are these days. And you should think about all these different countries are like states now in Europe. That means when in Germany there's a law, in fact, that means it has to be the same law in Spain. It has to be the same law in Great Britain. Okay, Brexit is coming, so maybe they can change it now. But this is the interesting part. When there's a law required, that it means for the whole European Union, this law needs to be in place. The tap water qualities, and especially in Europe, because the history of water is so different from the mindset already. Because my wife is just in Germany, and she sent me a picture of a grocery store, and they have 25 different mineral waters just on display right there, where you can buy and purchase, because everybody drinks mineral water in Germany.
Mineral water,
it's
right?
mineral
it's not
water.
Something that's been distilled or
correct.
Taken from
It's
tap
not purified
or...
water, and she was looking really for purified water, and she did not even found one.
She couldn't find one. Wow.
She could not even find one. Here it's vice versa. And right now the New York Times did a huge article about raw water. That this is like, and maybe Chance, you want to skip into the raw water, what that actually is.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So something that's going on right now that's really big is this raw water movement. And what most people perceive it as is that people are going out and drinking untreated spring water, any naturally occurring water that they can find, because they think that water in that state is what we were evolved to drink, and that's the sort of access we had throughout our evolutionary history. And there might be components like different microorganisms and things of that nature that might be beneficial. So obviously on the face of it, that sounds like a horrific idea, because just watching this movie, you can see that there's lots of different contaminants that can be in the water, as well as naturally occurring things like E. coli and bacteria and things of that nature. So naturally, people think the raw water movement is crazy, but there are actually waters that have been tested and certified safe to drink that haven't been treated whatsoever, that come from
correct
naturally occurring sources, like really deep aquifers in the earth that haven't been touched by man. And actually in Europe, that's more.
That's the common sense,
yeah,
and this was so interesting because I've been asked this question all the time. Like, so Martin, what do you think about raw water? Are you an advocate for raw water, and do you really think people should go into the woods and drinking their own finest water? And obviously, for me as a water sommelier, it's for me all about taste. So I'm getting excited when I taste differences in water, but water needs to be safe. And I think we're all agreeing in the room here. That's the most important thing. When we're putting something into our body, it needs to be safe.
And does rainwater, does that count as raw water?
Yeah, it consisted raw water. It should be raw water then as well. So there's a spring in Maine. It's called Tomale Springs. They actually have a patent on that name of raw water, a trademark. So they're the only people who actually allowed to use that name.
The champagne of raw water.
It's the champagne of raw water.
Okay.
When you would say this in France, you're getting sued right away because you're not allowed to use champagne in a wording when it's not from Champagne. So it's very interesting. I had this little problem once with a water company. But the thing is that this water is from exceptional quality. They're checking it all the time. They want to make sure it's bacteria-free. And this is just like a perfect water from Mother Nature.
Now, are they testing it for chemicals?
Yes. They're testing it as well for chemicals. Then I looked at the laws in Germany a little bit because I was interested in this whole raw water. What does that actually mean? Then I found out the German water bill for mineral water. And this is a standard, what you can see on water brands in Germany when it said natural occurring mineral water. That means it has to come from that spring. The company who's bottling that water needs to be right next to the spring. They're not even allowed to ship it somewhere. They have to be bottling their bottles right next to the spring. And they're not allowed to do anything to this water except they can extract iron, because iron is a solid what can turn obviously brown into water. That's not really what you're looking for. And they can extract sulfate because it can have the smell as well. I have a water at my place. It smells like sulfate. It's like the same smell what you had in West Virginia. And they are allowed to add or distract carbonation. That's the only thing by the German government what they're allowed to do to these waters. So then I looked at it. So this is actually raw water. Mm-hmm. And we have 520 different raw water springs in Germany. What's considered to be then raw water.
I'm curious if anyone in the room has had raw water before. Has anybody had it? Has anyone in here heard of raw water before? Maybe one or two of you?
Yeah.
I've heard that there are some springs in Hungary, and people are going over to Hungary to renew, revitalize, and rejuvenate their bodies in terms of cancer treatment.
Yes.
So you've heard of healing springs.
Healing springs. Yeah,
how does that differ from raw
It's very
water?
interesting. So natural occurring. So we have the regulations in Germany, and I'm glad that you're asking this. And maybe when people didn't hear it, because obviously the sound is not distracting so much. So one of the guests were asking, he heard that some people are going even to Hungary to finding some springs for the healing powers of these springs. And this is a big difference, I think, again, between America and Europe. In Europe, we have spas. It's like common sense. We have like so many different spas. And since hundreds of years, people are going to the spa areas to treating themselves on the waters. They're bathing in that water. They're drinking this water for health benefits. Like in Hungary, like in Germany, like in Italy, like in Austria, there are still a lot of bath towns and people going there to interact with the water. In Germany, at the law is saying, because I just explained about the natural mineral water, there's even a higher standard, and it's called healing waters. And these waters have a beneficial impact by scientists, needs to be proved, and then they're allowed to call healing waters, and they're not falling under the food law, what mineral water does in Germany and what does here as well. They're falling up under medication. So there are German waters in the supermarket with a label on medication because they have healing powers. And that's quite interesting. And here in America,
and how do they define that, though? You know,
a lot of calcium, a lot of magnesium, for example. And we know that calcium is good for bones, for example. Yeah. Sodium is very good for nerves.
So therapeutic levels of certain minerals and things of that nature.
Needs to be proved by the state and by law. And that's very, very interesting.
And how much do you absorb? Do you know how much do you absorb when you're just sitting in that water? How much magnesium is getting into your system?
So it really depends on the different spa areas. But for example, in Baden-Baden, that's a very, very famous spa town in Germany. They have like this very old bathhouses where you can treat yourself to the waters. And then they have even small little cups and you can taste the different waters. They're not really yummy, I have to say. Like they are so intense in reality that you would spit them out. You think you're drinking the Pacific Ocean.
I don't know. Maybe I'm not. I drink a lot of chlorinated water here in the States. So.
But they're tasting very offsetting, I have to say. Obviously, I'm not a doctor, so I cannot explain you how much minerals you have to intake, that really this has now the beneficial impact. But there are some healing waters. But the interesting part, what I want to make sure we all understand, that the regulations versus Europe and United States are completely different when it comes especially to bottled water. Because in Germany and in all Europe, they have to put not a nutrition factor label on it, because the nutrition factor label really doesn't make sense by bottled water here in America, because it's all zeroed out. There is no fat, there's no sugar, something like this into water. In Germany or in European Union, they have to put down the TDS level, that stands for total dissolved solids, how many minerals are actually combined in that water by parts per billion. The same what you already discussed here in the movie. And then at least 10 different minerals, the main minerals, what's actually inside the water, like magnesium, calcium, sodium, potassium, chlorine, all these kind of minerals, what can naturally occur in that water, needs to be labeled on the bottles.
I only like Einsteinium.
that the consumer can actually see what's in that water. What I think it's a brilliant idea, because then you actually know what you're drinking. But here in America, the laws are not really so strict. And we saw this again, like especially with the tap water quality laws. That really scares me. And I'm telling you, I have a filtration system at home. I'm using this for showering and just washing my teeth with this. But I do not drink tap water in America. I'm not really a big fan of it because I don't like the smell. That was my first approach.
I watched you drinking. So this is one of the elements of the competition in Berkeley Springs, was you had to taste all the tap waters from
Correct.
around. I think I saw you just giving kind of unilaterally ones.
Yes, because I smelled them, and when I saw a smell to it, sorry, but a water should not have an odor. What I said in the movie too. When I smell a water, that means it's a 0 for me or 1. I will not drink it. There's something off with that water, and I just had to drink something extremely intense again, because I was just recently on the Bill Nye show, the science show for Netflix, and they gave me astronaut water. So this is the water what they're using on the ISS, on the International Space Station. And I smelled at the water, and it smelled like you're walking into a dentist. It's like this extremely chemical, sweet smell to it. And I was like, oh my God. And I was smelling, because they gave me this blind. I had 3 different waters in front of me, and I just smelled the waters, and I couldn't tell them right away which water was what. And they looked at me like, so you're a smell champion now, or what is the deal here? I say, no, I can smell the difference in water. And they're like, I cannot believe this. So I came the producer, and I said, like, just smell this. And they're like, oh my God. These different waters have actually a smell. They gave me double distilled water, what I refused to drink because I don't see any benefits to it to drink completely distilled water. What it's that, zero minerals. There's no impact for me. Then they gave me LA Tap, what smelled like the swimming pool. And then they gave me this astronaut water, what was intense, I have to say. But I revisited that water even. I drank it twice because I just wanted to remember that in my brain, how intense that smell was and how sweet the taste was. It was very metallic and sweet.
So what do you do when you're in a hotel, you're traveling around the country, and you just have a 7-Eleven down the street from you, and it's that or the hotel water?
Yes, it will be the 7-Eleven water, definitely.
So, so you'll look at the back of the bottles, and
Yes.
what will you be looking for?
Now, the first thing what I'm looking for when I'm looking into a grocery store or 7-Eleven, I'm looking literally like what is standing on the bottle. Because still, there's some regulations in bottled water, even in the States. And there's 2 big differences. On the one hand, there's purified water. On the other hand, there's spring waters. That means the spring water comes from Mother Nature. It's a natural occurring spring, what they're bottling and then sending out in bottles. What I think it's interesting because all the different springs tasting differently because they're all coming from different sources. Though I love that concept. On the other hand, distilled water is nothing else than actually tap water. What already is highly processed in the beginning, because they have to add chlorine, they have to add fluoride in the United States. In the 70s, Germany got rid of fluoride because there was no scientific facts anymore to support the treat of dentist. So the regulations are slightly different in Germany. And so it's already processed beverage. Then they're processing it again because they're filtering everything out and adding back some minerals for taste purposes. And then they're creating, in my opinion, always a charming boy. That means like it's not offsetting in your taste, but it's very boring because they're all kind of like tasting the same because the mineral content is always the same, between 20 and 40 TDS, all purified waters. So even in my belief, first of all, it's boring to taste this kind of stuff. I don't see the benefits of the minerals because the mineral content is extremely low. So why I should drink that? And on the third thing is for me, they're using way more energy than the spring water. Because the spring water is just from the spring, bottled, sending it off, and I can drink it. Versus purified water, they're using way more energy because they have to process it twice.
So now obviously we need tap water.
Yes.
Right? Like we cook, we shower. And not everyone can afford bottled water.
Correct.
So when you're dealing with pumping water into people's homes and treating it, it seems that you want to be able to have a higher mineral content. But from your perspective, I mean, how do you avoid all of these chemical contaminants that are bound to get into that water if it's pulled from a river, if it's pulled from a lake, if it's even pulled from an aqueduct that travels all the way through the Central Valley, and is exposed to all kinds of agricultural runoff.
Yes. And I think this is the big problem, what the government is very scared about. And I think what we saw in your movie very well, when they would start to revisit this regulation, they will open up a whole can of ants. Because they're realizing suddenly, oh my God, we have to make so much actually to this. And I thought...
Do they have cans of ants in Germany?
But I thought it was interesting for me because especially when you said in the movie, there's like they're checking out around 72, I think, chemicals. What's been checked?
Yeah, the EPA requires 76 total.
76 total.
And
so
then
76
a handful
totals.
of other contaminants.
Okay, 76 chemicals, but we all know there are around 4,000 chemicals now. Could be. We don't know.
Oh, I mean, in terms of how many chemicals are used in commerce,
yes,
we know that over 80,000 were grandfathered in back pre-TASCA, so that was around 1973. Those chemicals required no further research, period. Although there was some reform last year in the United States called the Toxic Substances Control Act. They did pass some reform, but the problem was it gave the EPA the authority to investigate about 6 chemicals every couple of years.
Wow.
That's what they're required to do. So pick 6 chemicals of high concern. But then it's an unfunded mandate because actually chemical companies that are creating new chemicals can say, hey, EPA, we want you to look into this.
Yeah.
But then there's a sunset clause. If they don't get it done within a certain period, they just get the green light. So now what we have is a law that was passed before that led all of these chemicals being used in commerce in completely unregulated ways. That was never meaningfully resolved, has now seemed to be resolved in a way that basically just rubber stamps the chemical making process. There, you have an unfunded mandate. You can push chemicals out into society, make it seem like they're safe, make it seem like there's been research done, make it seem like the EPA has said, yeah, it's okay, these chemicals are fine by us. When in reality, that couldn't be further from the truth.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we're talking about, and this is part of the problem when you talk about the can of ants. Like, there are tens of thousands of these
I have
ants,
that feeling.
all
Correct.
look different,
Yes.
with different effects, and we don't know the first thing about those effects.
Yes.
For the most part.
What's scary is watching the film is that even when there were studies conducted to see if a particular chemical was safe or not, that some of these studies were also falsified.
That's right.
So
Yes.
you don't even know, like, even if you were to say, like, okay, we're going to regulate against all the unsafe chemicals, like, that's one thing that you fix. Like, if something's unsafe, then we're not going to put it in. But then the people who are judging whether these chemicals are safe or not are also corrupt.
Well, this is a great point because in the film we follow one chemical. One chemical spills. It's MCHM. What we find out about that chemical is that the data behind it was fictitious. The chemical was at least twice as toxic as the company reported, meaning it was a hazardous chemical. And this chemical, we didn't know if it caused cancer We didn't know if it was a mutagen. There were all of these things we didn't know about just this one chemical that was going completely unnoticed. So if this was happening with one chemical, what's going on with all of the countless others that
Correct,
are out
and I
there?
think the scary part is even when it's one chemical and you have studies on this one chemical, but what is this actually when this chemical and this chemical meets?
Sure.
We don't even know that. And then binds in H2O. What is the impact then? Because we all know, and my executive chef Andreas Roller is here, and what we playing as at Patina Restaurant, he creates dishes. So when he has this compound and this compound, he creates something with a completely new spectrum of taste, because he puts this and this together. So we don't know by chemicals even, when you're putting this and this together, what that even means. And what that even has maybe a stronger point or whatever. And I think this is like the long time. Then you need to do long-time studies as well. Obviously, there's no long-time studies done by some chemicals because you don't even know how to react them. I think it's a...
So there's
it's
actually a
very sad
term
pun.
for these, like when two random chemicals meet. I'd wanted to put this story into What Lies Upstream, but there's only so much time.
Sure.
Right. But these are called emerging contaminants. So these are chemicals, one antibiotic comes in contact with something in your deodorant, and boom, they meet up in a river somewhere, and then they get into your drinking water. We have no idea what's being created in the wild. So yeah, you have the tens of thousands, and then you have everything beyond that. Now, I was interested because Dr. David Lewis, who appears in the film, he's the EPA whistleblower and the one who has exposed all of the issues related to sewage sludge. Now, he said that you can manage a lot of the chemical content that ends up in a treatment plant by burning it off instead of putting it into fertilizer. That you can actually get it up to an extremely high temperature, and that deals with a lot of the chemicals. At least it's one way of making it so that it doesn't end up either back in our water or our soil. I'm not sure. Do you know? Does the Netherlands do anything like that in their treatment plants?
I don't know. I don't know. I'm so sorry.
Always looking for solutions.
Yeah. I'm looking for solutions too, and I'm rethinking the whole time. The scary part for me is, and we saw our President Trump right there, and he said, like, in the beginning, Mexico didn't have good drinking water, and now they're building cars and vice versa. And now suddenly he's the gentleman who cut back IPA and everything. So I think this is very, very scary as well. So what do you think how the future looks like for this whole matter?
How does the future look like? So the EPA and federal agencies and state-level agencies have not been doing their jobs for a long time. The reason that they're not doing their jobs is complicated. We show that in the film.
Correct.
It's a mixture of political influence and regulatory capture, and then also just the culture within the agencies, protectivism, careerism. So these things kind of feed into why our environmental policemen aren't doing their jobs and haven't been for a long time. But now we're in a situation that is so much worse. We saw in the film that these agencies will invent fake science in order to cover up contaminations that will make them look bad. So we know that they're willing to do it.
They're creating fake news.
Creating fake science, yeah. Which is extremely dangerous because it undermines the entire institution.
Yeah.
And when you have the EPA now, the CDC is not allowed to say evidence-based anymore. That phrase, insane, that might be the most insane thing actually that's happened this year. The CDC can't use the phrase evidence-based. But at the EPA, you also have Scott Pruitt trying to set up conversations around science like it's a debate, rather than evidence-based research that proves something to be true or not. They want it to be red teams and blue teams who are debating whether or not climate change is real. And I think what all of this is going to lead to is that the good scientists, the scientists who can't handle this kind of a culture, the ones who are maybe not able to do what they wanted to before, but really are just seeing the kind of work they're going to be forced to do, are being squeezed out, and a few will remain. And what kind of science are they going to create? What flavor is the Trump administration going to demand from them? And Scott Pruitt, who sued the EPA 19 times. It makes Randy Huffman, who appears in the film, he's the head of the state agency in West Virginia, it normalizes him. He only sued the EPA twice.
Yeah.
So I have a great fear that the current EPA It's more dangerous in some respects than no EPA at all, because it can undermine regulations, it can invent fake science, and then that science can be used to, fight against climate change, fight against some of the things that we fought really hard. And then you end up bringing fake facts to a conversation. One side has their facts, another side has their facts, and at that point, you can argue anything at all.
But then you don't have a regulatory body. So then what do you do when there's no EPA?
You're not protected.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Which is a big difference. Because right now we have the illusion. We can pretend that we're protected when we're actually not. You get rid of something, suddenly people go, gosh, well, maybe we need that. Maybe we rebuild it. Maybe we put the thing in place that we always needed and haven't had. So it does create an opportunity, but it requires a degree of patience.
Yeah.
We still have the state agencies. It's not like we don't have some organizations that are out there who are supposed to be doing this job. In fact, the EPA's primary function is to step up and be the safety net when the state agencies fail. And right now, they actually have the ability to impede what the state agencies are doing. So, I don't know. We need a new model, and we need something right now where we need to make sure that our federal regulators aren't actually interfering with protective elements that are happening at the state level. I don't necessarily, and I also think actually the EPA in its current form, fully dismantled and able to create fake science, is more useful to the Trump administration than if you didn't have it there at all. If you're a mafia boss and you've got an enemy, is that enemy worth more to you if you can get them under your wing, or if you take them out? Always worth more to you if they're under your wing, right?
Definitely.
Do you see some of these, I'm talking about the scientists who are just sort of jaded with the entire environment, do you see some independent researchers actually going rogue and trying to get this, creating movements, I guess? Do you see independent researcher movement as far as trying to inform people about the safety of their waters and what they can...
I think you've hit the nail on the head. I think that the scientists who are leaving the EPA right now, just like the ones we see in the film who are doing independent research, they're going to be the ones who restore our faith in science. And they're going to be the ones who we should be funding. They're the ones who we can trust. We should be, doing crowdfunding for Dr. Edwards, Dr. Lewis, people who are not beholden to some kind of special interest when they're creating science. I think that's going to be, and I think that there are so many scientists now who can fulfill this role. And that's what we're going to have to look to in this period. And in some ways it may lead to something better, but I'm deeply concerned in the short run.
Yeah. For me, it was interesting to see as well throughout the movie that everybody from the state officials were drinking bottled water. And they always said, like, oh, it's safe to drink, the tap water, it's safe to drink. But then you saw them the whole time holding a bottle of water. So it was clear for me right there already, they don't even trust it themselves. Or they maybe knew more and they didn't want to disclose it, obviously. It was very interesting for me to see that.
In all of the sessions where you see state politicians or local regulators, and when they're sitting up at the town hall, they would always put, maybe you noticed this in the film, like a glass of water and then a bottle of water. To see, and then there would be this kind of moment where you'd be waiting to see which one are they going to take. Is it going to be the glass or is it going to be the bottle? Randy Huffman always made a point, the secretary of the Department of Environmental Protection in the state, always made a point of drinking from the glass, not from the bottle.
Interesting.
He wanted to make a
like
statement.
This. Yeah. He wanted to make a statement, but you don't know. Maybe he pulled the tap, the bottled water into the glass.
That's right. Yeah.
Has the audience?
They could have all been full of bottled water. We wouldn't know.
I would love to hear. Do we have the audience maybe a question?
I have a question.
Please.
The question is that wasn't really brought up in the movie, and that is the debate about the container of water. There is evidence to show that bottled water has, depending upon what plastics are used, that it can contaminate the strictest laboratory water that you might say, it leaks into the water and contaminates, as opposed to bottled water. And even when you have glass water as opposed to plastic.
You're talking about leaching from the containers?
Yeah, leaching from the containers. And also with the bottles that are glass, even the color of the glass will determine whether the water is detrimental, if there's a detrimental effect on it or not. Can you speak to that?
So I think it's interesting that you're getting the question, and I'm repeating this just shortly. The guest was asking about plastic versus glass, and this is a big topic. And for me as a water sommelier, it's all about taste. So I tasted, for example, a company who produces both a plastic and a glass version of the same water, and the plastic version tastes completely different than the glass version. So obviously there is something what can leak into water when it's coming from a plastic bottle. Mostly plastic bottles have a year expiration date, glass bottles mostly 2 years. I think that's an indicator as well that obviously...
I know H2O, how long until that
it's a glass bottle.
So it's a 2-year bottle.
It's a 2 year, because
it doesn't get better over time.
It's regulated by food, therefore it needs to be an expiration date on. And there are studies been done. I had, for example, in a Skilde bottle, a Danish spring water, what was 10 years old, was totally fine. Nothing will change on that taste. The water will stay the same quality, but it reminds ourselves that bottled water is regulated as food, though it needs to be an expiration date on it. Even it doesn't mean it's bad right away. But yes.
But okay for plants still in that situation.
Yeah, absolutely.
They'll be all right.
I would say. But you have a very strong point there. And for me, because I love the taste of water, I'm always looking for the perfect taste. Therefore, glass bottle has a better taste than plastic. There was problems for many years ago about BPA. There was a plastic what we could found in plastic bottles, even in toys for children, all this kind of thing. And they realized, oh my God, this is completely poison, because obviously we all know when a baby has some plastic in the mouth, they love to chew it on it, and it could relieve BPA, what is very like a very bad chemical, what can lead to cancer.
I thought it was just baby pacifying agent.
No. And they get rid of this, so there's no more BPA allowed in the United States in plastic bottles, for example. So they get rid of that because the people realize something is going on. It's been exposed through the media, and they had to react on it. And I think that brings us back where the future looks like. Maybe it's important for us as the people to react on this and to say, hey guys, is this really safe? And I love that you said, test my water, that you can go on a homepage and you can send over a sample of your water to make sure it's what's actually in there. I don't even want to say safe or not drinkable, but
it's just about information.
Correct, just information that you at least know what's in there. And I think the more people will do this, the more movement we will become, the more better it is for everybody, that we need to talk about it. And what I feel, what was very sad in the movie, that in the first year when they regulated this very strict law, everybody was like, oh great, and this is wonderful, amazing, all the news channels were amazed. And then the year after, it was pretty much like under the table they did it. And
they got rid of it under the table.
Yeah, and then even...
the press wasn't... I mean, this is what always happens, right? Money finds a way.
Yeah.
Money can afford to keep people there year after year. I mean, that's what's hard. The average person, they have families to feed.
And they like to forget very fast, obviously, too.
And once the water stopped having a smell.
Yes.
Yeah, that really would be the key. We should just make every chemical that's out there have an incredibly strong odor. Man, it'd make water taste terrible, but we'd know.
At least we know.
So, do we want to do one more question and then?
This one. I hope it hasn't been said. I left a little bit, but I was wondering about like the Brita filters and all those. Are they doing anything, and which one would you recommend, if any?
So obviously Brita filters and all this kind of like filtration system, what you can buy, where we literally just a filtration. I'm not talking about reverse osmosis and all this kind of things where it's like actually a little bit more complicated. But when you're just having a Brita filter, mostly it's the chlorine. It's all about, again, then the smell.
The heavy metals out.
It's pretty, they're putting some metals out, but for the consumer, the most important thing is they just want to get rid of the smell.
And I might be able to speak to this a little bit because I did a little bit of research. And so for Brita filters, Martin's right. Yeah, the main thing they take out is the chlorine, and that's the main thing that's detectable for the average consumer. But when it comes to heavy metals, some of their filters remove some metals, but not all. Other ones don't remove any heavy metals at all. Like, for example, arsenic. Like, some filters don't remove arsenic whatsoever from water. And when it comes to things like reverse osmosis systems, they take out almost everything. The next step up from that would be distillation, which you literally get nothing but the water. So reverse osmosis takes out everything, but then you don't have the minerals, for example. And there are some things that you can do
You're taking out the health benefits too. That's a problem.
And there are
this kind of stuff.
And there are some things you can do. So his question earlier, so these people who have all these different chemicals in the water, like what can they do if they can't afford spring water, for example? So if you have a reverse osmosis filter and it takes everything out, there are attachments that remineralize the water. So that's something you might be able to do. But these reverse osmosis filters cost like $180 and last about 6 months on average before you have to change the filter. So you can take out a lot of the stuff in there. And some of these things, I think it's like a millionth the diameter of a strand of hair is like how small the elements they're able to take out are. So that's probably the best home system you could use that doesn't take a lot of energy, isn't that costly compared to different things, and you can also remineralize your water with different attachments as well.
But the very important thing about this is you have to change your filtration system obviously every maybe 3 months, every 6 months. This has to be a cycle. And this is what the problem is then again, that a lot of people saying, oh, I have this filtration system in place, or my refrigerator has this filtration system, and everybody's happy about the refrigerator, but they never thought about it, that you might need to change the filter sometimes. Because the problem is with that is that a lot of people forgetting about it, and then they don't change their filtration system. And one point, the filter is just done, and then it's vice versa. You're contaminating your water then at that point.
And that mineral,
that is a problem.
Yeah, that mineral component aspect is actually incredibly important. So when we talk about purified waters, the World Health Organization actually recommends you don't consume purified waters because the minerality to them is important, and by taking it out, there's actually might be some health risk associated with that as far as leaching minerals out of the body and things of that nature. But and they actually recommend, based off of correlational studies, like TDS is around 200, but of course they say that there needs to be more studies done, for example. But to them, the minerality is very important about the water for the World Health Organization.
What I like to see is something like this done in a broader way, right? Like that it's not done just at the tap at your home, but that it's done, that we invest in infrastructure that rather than just saying, let's just run it through activated carbon, you know, we're doing reverse osmosis, or maybe we're doing distillation and adding mineral content back in, you know, realizing that we're a chemical nation and saying, well, we should be, you know, there's going to be all kinds of implications, developmental, behavioral, health costs. So much happens when water has these unknowns. And so I think what you both are doing is really important. I'm excited and grateful to have been on the show today. And it's been a lot of fun chatting.
Thank you so much for being here, and it was incredible. And I can just for the listeners,
thank you to everyone for
and thanks obviously for the audience. And to the end, I always want to say, please be healthy, drink healthy, cook good, and water is not just water. And watch, obviously, the documentary What Lies Upstream. I think it's a mind-blowing documentary. You did a great job. Thank you so much for doing this.
Well, thank you for being in it.
And it was little fun for me as well. I had no clue what the documentary all about. You just approached me, and I approached you with my water, and we just exchanged waters.
As I stand by, still the best trade I've ever made. So.
Thank you so much, and hopefully we'll see you on episode 8 here at Planet Water, the H2Know podcast. Thank you so much, everybody.
See you guys.